What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Christian Shad. What's going on, fellas?
Good with y'all boys.
Good.
Back again after another off week. Apologies again. For and with a renewed focus. Obviously, since the last time that we joined y'all, we have officially started the new league year in the NFL. So heavily focused on the NFL this week in terms of what's happened, what's transpired over the past few weeks, with free agency starting, the legal tampering period, the actual free agency trades going on. A lot to get into today. But to start, we do have to shout out two people that just retired officially retired from the NFL. Two guys that we already had a feeling were retired. Well, one for sure we had a feeling was retired, but
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton and big play Darius Slay officially retired from the NFL this past week. One coming today, one coming yesterday. So want to shout them out for two great careers. Anything you guys want to add to that?
They're great in their own respect, both of them. As you know, Ty is obviously a Colts legend. Probably one of the more quieter guys that most people don't talk about a lot, but he did great, amazing things for the Colts. And same thing with Slay. Getting drafted by Detroit, playing pretty well there to move to the go to the Eagles again, having a solid career there, ended up with a Super Bowl 2 years ago. So shout out to both of them. I believe both are in a running to be with their respective organization and their what you would call their ring of honor. So we'll see how that holds up for both of them. But good careers by both of them.
Got to second that. I think they both are definitely on that track for ring of honor for both those organizations. Huge. Just overall huge, especially I won't say growing up, but like how when we really started locking into football, that's when I really locked in, like Ty especially. And I just loved his play style. He wasn't the biggest, but he made it happen every Sunday out there. So you gotta respect. Same thing with big play Slay. You gotta respect people that put it on the line every week. Shout out to both of them for sure.
Definitely will both be Ring of Honor guys, and hopefully for the Colts, maybe the Ty retirement is the end of their little Andrew Luck curse, but we shall see. We shall see with that. But since we last joined, we've obviously had a lot of things happen. Obviously in the free agency space, but a major trade that we last talked about that has officially fallen through with Maxx Crosby originally going to the Baltimore Ravens, and something happened, and it looks like the Ravens may have gotten cold feet, or maybe Max's knees it's not as pristine as you might think. But he is officially back with the Las Vegas Raiders. So how do you guys feel about that news when it dropped? Obviously, we've since then heard some more stuff, and he kind of officially said what his piece about what happened yesterday. So how'd you guys feel about the whole I guess debacle, if you want to call it?
After hearing what Max said, I got the feeling that the Ravens jumped on the trade knowing that they potentially was going to renege on it. They had the idea like, okay, we'll get out of it, but we want to be the first ones to get him, because if it all clear, we're gonna go with it. Because for him to say that you didn't meet with anybody to at literally the end of you usually, well, I don't know how everybody organizes, but watching the Eagles organization when the player comes through, when they just made a trade, a free agent pickup or whatever, they walking through the whole building. They walking through the building, going to the respective offices, talking to different people before they even get to the physical part of it. And I guess maybe that's more of a reason of, we know they're gonna pass their physical, they're not really out of shape, or they didn't come off an injury. But just hearing that everybody else saying that everybody was privy to the same information on his injury calls for concern. Like, okay, so what is it that the Ravens might have saw that they wanted to pause on it or whatnot? But hey, shout out to the Raiders though, because for him to go back there and the decent amount of pickups that they had, and being able to still keep those pickups without having to renege on their own deals because of that situation, I think that ultimately works out for Max. Now the Trey Hendrickson portion, obviously the Ravens picked him up instead. We'll see how that works out. But I mean, it was just overall just a weird thing to see. I have a problem with getting all the information, but when it comes out that everybody had the same exact information you had, there's nothing else that you received that was different. Kind of make you wonder like what the hell is really going on. But we'll see what the Raiders do. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing to happen in the world where you get all pro caliber defensive end to come back to your team like the Raiders did. I'm with you though, Chris. I think it's a little funny when it took so long for Eric DaCosta and Mentor to meet with Maxx when he came in. I think hearing that part of his story made me I already thought they got cold feet, but it has kind of cemented it to me. They weren't really trying to do that shit for real. I'm sure at one point they did, but they definitely thought about it. And for it to happen so far, I think it was 5 days in between from when they agreed to the trade and when they had to come in and do the physical. That's a lot of time to sit there and think, again, with free agency started and everything. That's a lot of time to sit there and rethink, go through other scenarios. And they're like, hey, we got Trey. And I don't buy that shit about Trey Hendrickson and Maxx Crosby. They're trying to get both of them. I don't buy it personally, but whatever. But it was a lot of time to sit there and rethink the whole plan. And I think that's really what happened. And they found it out and they took it. So I know Eric DaCosta talked about how people were still hitting them up, like nobody's like alienating them and stuff like that after it. But it is a weird look to everybody, especially with the reporting on top of the reporting that came out from reputable reporters that we have, and a lot of it, of course, is coming from agents. I get that too, as we all know. But these are people going on TV saying people are really confused at what the Ravens doing. It was a hell of a story. But at the end of the day, they ended up with Trey Hendrickson, who can offer, some of what Maxx can. Probably a little worse against the run, but at the same time, they needed a pass rusher. Now, is he that closer that Eric DaCosta said he is? We'll see. We'll see if that comes to fruition there. But yeah, shout out to Maxx Crosby for taking it on the chin, pretty much. But we already knew that's how he was going back to the Raiders.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with y'all a little bit in terms of how it looks weird and that the Ravens just got cold feet. But in that same vein, the Raiders did want to trade Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby wanted to go, and now all of a sudden he wants to stay. See, he talked a lot about how the Ravens treated him, which I like you guys mentioned, it is something that seems a bit odd, but didn't mention anything about those medicals, which it's not necessarily his he's not necessarily going to do that, but I do find it a little interesting that no other team seemingly tried, based on whatever's been reported, no other team has seemingly tried to come back and re-enter trade talks with the Raiders. He immediately comes out and says that he's staying a Raider, which, to his credit, when something like that happens, it's kind of like, I am where my feet are and I need to be there. So, and I personally like him staying with the Raiders, especially like you mentioned, Chris, with the additions that they had. But it's just a weird situation because, like you said, and obviously he kind of has gotten his piece out. So, there's three sides to every story. So did they really just kind of leave him there, or did he get there early, like he said, and go work out? I don't, not sending the private jet for him. I do feel like it's a little like, but who knows? It's kind of like, the Ravens aren't necessarily notorious for making these big trades. So, maybe that's just how all their process has always been. And we just we weren't privy to that information. But I do, like I said, it is very interesting to me that nobody else tried. And based on the reporting, it also sounded like nobody else got close to the 2 firsts either. And once the Ravens went into the 2 firsts, teams bowed out pretty quickly. So it's like a mixture of all of the things where it just seems like just like a very weird situation. But obviously the Ravens can't say if it is medical, the Ravens probably don't want to go out there and bash him and say that his shit's fried. and he's obviously not going to say that his shit's fried, but he has come, just about as strong as you can against, against the Ravens, and saying some of the things that he's done. And, obviously he's told, I don't know if you guys saw the clip from Cam Hayward, but he was kind of like, fuck the Ravens and fuck those guys over there. So, it seems like there's definitely some ill will from the Maxx Crosby side of things. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. Obviously, we won't get the answers until, maybe we might get a little more hint from it draft time. But, until we see the on-field product from both sides, I don't think that we'll really get our answers on what things will look like until we start getting into training camp, seeing if Maxx Crosby's actually practicing, seeing how he looks next season. Is he going to be like a dud, or if he's actually going to be, even if he is like a dud for the first half of the season and then he comes back on strong towards the end? Those are so many things that and factors that, remains to be seen. But like you said, it's just a very, very weird situation.
And I'm wondering, as far as like how you said, not hearing about the other teams, I'm wondering if that has everything to do with, their price for him has dropped now because, you just got two first round pick. I'm definitely not doing that. And I might even say, well, if they saying something wrong, hey, I'll give you a fourth. And they like, nah, you know what? We'll just keep them because now y'all really bugging in their opinion. But I'm just wondering, like, the negotiation tactic, like, did people really not talk, or did they just say, all right, we'll give you this instead? And they like,
and that comes to mind as well. But like, I just don't assume that negotiations drop that far. Like,
yeah,
if somebody,
it's hard to match though a top 15 pick and then another first rounder.
It is, but an extra first round pick, period. For a guy that you guys wanted to get off of, and then maybe you don't get a first and a second, but maybe it's a first and a fourth. Still, it's a guy that you wanted to move off of. So it's just, and given his, he's getting up to 30. It's, I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird situation, and you never know. Maybe the Cowboys were willing to give pick 13 or wherever they're at in the top half of the draft for him. Maybe it's just that straight up and nothing else. I don't know. Because it's like a weird, because I loved it for the Ravens and I loved it for the Raiders in terms of the trade value that they got and what they can do with their team, especially with all the free agent signing. And now it's like with the Ravens, I don't know if I necessarily love. Like, I do really like Trey Hendrickson at that number, which was, based on the reporting, it was an overpay, or not an overpay, but above what he was being offered at that point in time. Then for Maxx to go back to the Raiders, it's kind of like, I know he loves it there, or whatever the case may be. It does seem like it's a little awkward. Now they don't also have that extra first round pick, or I guess 2 first round picks to kind of continue building their team. So it's a little interesting. But we also have another trade that we're about to get into that was a 1+++. So I don't know how you do that for him and not for Maxx. It's, it gets a little interesting. So it remains to be seen what happens with, like I said, once we start to get into the training camp and getting people actually on the field, how Maxx responds. But it just seems a little very odd. It's all very odd. Whatever side of it is, whether it is his knees shredded or if it is the Ravens getting cold feet, like if the Ravens are getting cold feet and they go into the season, even if Trey Hendrickson is good, if Maxx Crosby is Maxx Crosby, I think that they deserve like a hefty level of criticism and disrespect. Because that, like, getting the cold feet is bad business, number one. Number two, it's like, when are you gonna jump? Like, when are you gonna, try to really do something? Because you've been this organization that's been going for these older guys when it comes to receivers and filling some of your needs. And then you kind of been a team that's built through the draft, which has been, successful for them. Luckily that they hit on Lamar, really, which is why it was successful. But, taking that next step is always something that teams are trying to figure out, and you getting scared to do that. DaCosta, you might need to get up out of there. But with that being said, we had another big trade get kicked off yesterday. Got a little bit of a hint from it from Aqib Talib a couple days back. But Jaylen Waddle was traded to the Denver Broncos for a first, or Jaylen Waddle and a 4th-round pick were traded for a first, I think a 3rd and a 4th, and maybe next year's 5th or something like that. But definitely a big trade for Jaylen Waddle. How'd you guys feel about that when you heard the news?
I mean, for me, they had a legit argument that, Bo Nix never got hurt, they would have made it to the Super Bowl. Now, with that being said, you did play a 3rd place schedule, and now you're playing a 1st place schedule this year. They need some weapons on that offensive side of the ball. And that just tells me that they believe in their team. They believe in Bo Nix. And that they're going for it. They need all the weapons they can have. I like Jaylen Waddle. Now, is he worth that much? I don't fucking think so, in my personal opinion. But I mean, to them, they think that they're ready. They proved that they, was the number 1 seed. They proved that, hey, we made it through the playoffs. We beat, Josh Allen, a formidable opponent, and we got unlucky and our quarterback got hurt in the last play of the game. So if we can run it back and then would add a weapon, we should be able to make a Super Bowl. So that's what they think. Do I think that? I don't think so. Like I said, 1st place schedule, that changes a lot. But I like the addition. I just don't like the compensation for it.
I think that's fair. I don't hate it, and I think it's more about the timing. You're at this point where the bulk of free agency is done. When we saw the Broncos didn't make any moves. I think they re-signed their own players, but didn't make any additions there. You've done some work on the draft so far. We're next week is a month away, so but you're getting a sense of who's going to be there at pick 30 in the 1st round. So you're at this point now where you're like, okay, we done the work. We have a picture of who's going to be there at 30. Is that worth more or less than Jaylen Waddle? And they decided we'll go for Waddle. And I think the timing of it makes it more palatable to me. I get like the compensation part of it. I was reading something that like it was a 1st and a 3rd, and that's
like really what it is.
And they were stuck on that. And I'm like, okay, you think about it as a 1st and a 3rd, and then they ended up swapping the 4th rounders to get this shit through, it was a good. I mean, you talking about from the big, like I think pick number 11 or something in the 1st round. I mean the 4th round to pick whatever. One of the last picks in the 4th round. So that's a good little kind of switch off too from the other side. So I don't hate this conversation at all. I think Waddle is a good compliment for that offense, especially a good compliment to Courtland Sutton. I'm interested to see how it all works out in the grand scheme of things. Of course, like we saw the news a couple weeks ago that Sean Payton's giving up play calling. So we'll see just overall how their offensive flow looks. But I think this is a good ad for them. Again, you're looking at them and they're looking around, like you said, Chris. They were close to getting to the Super Bowl, and you're looking around. It's like, okay, well, the Ravens have a new coach. The Bengals are Bengals, and the Kansas City. We don't know when their quarterback. We don't know if Pat Mahomes is coming back exactly. I mean, you're looking at the Bills have a new head coach, even though he was in the system already. It's a time to strike if you're going to strike. So I get it from that end. So I don't hate it. And then if you're Miami, you're stocking up. Of course, they got all this dead money, but they don't care. So I don't care. It's what it is. So you stocking up picks. I mean, you just got to hit on your picks if you're Miami at this point and see what you do from there.
Yeah, and I actually really liked it. I didn't mind the trade compensation. It sounds a lot like when you first initially hear it. It's like a first and what? It's like, all right, I don't know about that, but ultimately moving up 20 some spot or almost 20 spots in the 4th round, so essentially making it a 1st and a 3rd with a pick swap. I don't think it's that bad. And for an offense that also probably needed an explosive receiver. Obviously, they have Courtland Sutton, and he's been consistently good for them. And we saw some of the other guys like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin make flashes throughout the season. But, Jaylen Waddle, I do think is a really good player, really, really, really good receiver. And, the Tyreek Hill of it being in Miami probably hurt his shine a little bit because he was originally drafted in the top 10. He did break the record for most receptions for a rookie in his rookie season that, Puka is obviously shattered now. but he did have that on his resume. Did come into this as a rookie, going for 1,000 yards, went for 1,300 yards the next season, and then it's kind of as the team has deteriorated. Obviously, his play has kind of gone down as well.
Yeah, injuries.
I'm not necessarily the biggest Bo Nix guy, but he could be looking like Bo Nix at least has a stronger arm than Tua. Like, they can scheme some things around me where I'm kind of like the primary guy, as opposed to, it's not Courtland Sutton. He kind of hasn't. He's been the primary guy, but not really. And they can kind of focus on him, so where his stats might start to, make it look more realistic to what he was. And then also, Devontae Smith, and to bring it back to college, they were both on the same team in college, and Devontae Smith obviously won the Heisman. Going into that year, it was Jaylen Waddle being the number one guy, and clear cut number one guy, and then he got hurt.
Say that. I was just about to say, not to cut you off, but I always thought he was one of the better receiver.
That's how they viewed him.
Yeah, but he was behind. I mean, even before that, he was behind, Judy and Ruggs. But I always thought he was him, and like you said, he was supposed to be. He got hurt, and then Devontae just took that shit and fucking ran. He took that shit and did exactly what he was supposed to do. So maybe there's a lot of untapped ability there, just between the limited not necessarily limited quarterback situation, because it's not like Tua was just ass, but between his injuries, between maybe some of the limitations in terms of his, if his timing is off, he doesn't necessarily have the arm strength or the creatability that Bo Nix does. But there's also some things that he may be able to take advantage of, deep down the field, as well as kind of use his yak ability. So I do really like the trade for them. And then, like you said, to their defense is solidified. So, the offense is what had to get right. I don't know. I do think they still need to add in the running back room. I don't know if, J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey are going to get it done this year, because, last year we saw it wasn't necessarily great. Excuse me. But I do really like the move for them. And, what better player are you? I mean, at least receiver-wise, what better player are you going to get at pick 30 or whatever?
That's what I'm at with it, yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. The third round pick, all those picks after the first round, I'd be like, it is what it is. Like, the first round pick is the most important, and then everything else from there. Obviously, you don't want to lose a second round pick, but when we start you're at the bottom of the draft, it starts getting a little deeper and deeper, especially third round when the comp picks start. It's just kind of like we'll pick some of that stuff up. So ultimately, I think it kind of makes the DJ Moore trade makes sense a little bit more with the Buffalo Bills in terms of their compensation there, because I think all of us didn't think that he was going to go for the second or whatever he went for. Part of that was because the Bears were told anybody that they would listen that they were trying to move off of him. And then part of it obviously is probably because of some of his declining stats, but I think it makes a little bit more sense to see it that way than it does. And also, to give Brandon Beane a little credit, there was rumors that he denied trading a first round pick for Jaylen Waddle last year. Maybe that was a little bit untrue, because he obviously went for more than just a first round pick. So maybe, but I don't know, Brandon Beane. I don't know. But with that being said, we can go ahead and get those are the two biggest news stories of the past week. But obviously, there's a lot more that happened on the first day of the legal tampering period. We had a lot happen, to the point that the actual league year day, there was basically no more free agent movement, and pretty much hasn't been over the past week. So what were some of you guys' favorite moves and signings over the last week?
I mean, like you said, it was a good bit of moves that were made. I say one of the bigger moves I think of is Mike Evans to San Francisco. That offense definitely needs a number one receiver. With George Kittle, hurting his Achilles. I mean, I'm not sure when he'll return or whatnot. But I mean, their receiving core wasn't good at all last year. Let's be honest, their receiving core wasn't good. They played probably above what you would think they should play as. But I mean, Mike Evans is a steady receiver, has been for years upon years upon years, and I think with that type of receiver in that offense, especially how, we all know Kyle Shanahan, he'll scheme it up or whatnot. So I think that'll be good for that offense. And that might actually, encourage Kyle Shanahan to not run Christian McCaffrey into the fucking ground. But I mean, I don't know if that's gonna do anything at all because he just love running the ball. But that was one. Another one, I'll say Kenneth Walker, and that's simply because we all been talking about this for years, man. Kansas City has no fucking running backs, man, and they keep bringing back these old running backs that duck. And we talk about, Andy Reid not wanting to run the ball. I mean, I fucking wouldn't run the ball with them damn backs they had. So I mean, this might help alleviate some issues that they have. Again, that's another situation where I don't know when Patrick Mahomes will come back, how he'll look when he come back. But I think that them picking up an established running back like Kenneth Walker would probably help their offense more than just picking up I mean, obviously they still could use a receiver, but I think that'll allow Andy Reid to lean on the running game a little bit more than he has, and that can help that offense out a lot. I'm not saying they're going to become this explosive offense that we've seen in the past, but they definitely need to pick up that fucking running game, and I think that's a good pickup for them.
Yeah, I like both of those. The only reason I'm a little skeptical on the Niners, only because Mike Evans has struggled to stay healthy these last couple of seasons, which has going to.
Francisco got the boogeyman over there.
You know what I'm saying? Then they bring back Dre Greenlaw. Could be great. Could be. You know what I mean? But I'm a little worried, but I do like the Odigizua deal that they had. So we'll kind of see how that comes to fruition. But I feel you on the Kansas City one. I feel you on it. But I'm gonna go with honestly go with Dallas. I think they had a good one. Getting Rashawn Gary, I like, and of course he was reports that he was on the outs and reports that they were going to release him, and then he got hacked. Whatever the fuck happened there. But I do like them getting there. I do like them getting Kobe Durant. Just a little bit more security for a little bit more depth actually for their secondary. I like what the Saints did, man. And I think it's not bringing back Cameron Jordan, Mario Davis. Yep. You brought back. I mean, and then you brought back Caden Ellis. You got David Edwards, the guard from Buffalo, to help that interior offensive line. If they go edge in the draft, this Saints team could look pretty damn solid. Edge and receiver still. You still need another receiver over there, but I like what they did. The Panthers, I like what the Panthers are doing as well. Now is Jalen Phillips worth that price tag that they gave him? I don't know. That's a lot of money for Jalen Phillips, who we know has injury issues, but at the same time he's a very promising player, still young enough. But overall, I like what the Panthers Saints did, and then like I said, the Cowboys.
And it was odd, Devin Lloyd was billed as and that's the other major piece that the Panthers signed, and he was obviously the top linebacker coming into the free agency market, but it's interesting to see that his market was definitely not to what we thought it was going to be. So, or at least in terms of the high dollar value. But
same thing with Rasheed Walker. Left the tackle that they got.
Yeah, and they got the left tackle Rasheed Walker as well from the Packers, and he got a $4 million contract, heavily incentivized, but he's kind of betting on himself. So the Panthers are making some shrewd moves, but I feel like we've also said that the past couple years in terms of the moves they made, which obviously it paid off this year for them making the playoffs and having a really good playoff game. But speaking of teams that we kind of talk about. I really like everything that the Commanders are doing this season thus far in terms of the offseason comparatively to what they did last year, where they kind of doubled down. And in a way, it's kind of like what the 49ers are doing, doubling down on a bunch of old guys, bringing in Kayvon Chason, bringing in Odafe Alway, bringing in Nick Cross on a short contract, bringing in Amik Robertson, getting Rachaad White to come back and play. Jaden Daniels like they did in college. I do think that all of those moves are very
Leah Chanel too.
Leah Chanel instead of we'll see if they bring back B Wags because I mean Dan Quinn does love him and I can see that happening again. But bringing those guys in, a lot of players that are pretty fairly young. Obviously, always the high market guy that was coming off of a great season with the Ravens and Chargers really took off with the Chargers. So we'll kind of see if they're able to continue to unlock him because he went from a guy that couldn't get sacks to he couldn't stop getting sacks. So I really really like what the Commanders did, and then to kind of echo like what you said, I really like the Mike Evans move. Aside from the fact that they are very very old over there. And I mean, damn near every one of their prominent players has an injury history with Brock, Mike Evans now, Joey Bosa, their first round pick from last year.
Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey.
Ricky Pearsall. We don't know what's going on with Trent Williams. So there's still some questions there. And then Dre Greenlaw, I mean, Fred Warner at this point, you gotta say a little something about him too, because who knows how he will respond after kind of pushing the issue like he was trying to come back and play during the playoffs. So those are I mean, I think overall, I was thinking about it and kind of reading through it. I really don't think like anybody like really truly just went crazy in terms of the money. Maybe if you want to say Jalen Phillips, just because of his injury history, but I don't think that we had a contract that was just like, oh my God, like what the hell? What is really going on here? Maybe Linderbaugh, in terms of what he signed and what his value is, but trying to poach somebody from a great organization like the Ravens to bring him to the Raiders, an organization that's trying to get back to where they need to get to. I can understand giving a slight overpay, but aside from that, it honestly seems like a lot of guys like their market maybe hasn't necessarily been what people thought it was, and there's been a lot of people I feel like we talk about with Rasheed Walker that have kind of signed these 1-year contracts, bet on myself, and then try to come back to free agency next year. We'll kind of see how that goes. I feel like every year we talk about people doing that, and there's not – I can't remember in recent history, some outside of Zach Bond maybe, and even then he wasn't like a guy that was like a 1-year bet on himself. He was just a guy that, was kind of miscast with New Orleans, and then, he went to Philly and had a, dream season in terms of how everything played out outside of his own play. So I can't really think of anybody just off the top of my head. Maybe I'm missing somebody that did the 1-year bet on themselves and then went on to have this huge contract in the recent history. So that'll be something interesting to watch, or if all these guys are just right back in free agency doing the the 1-year thing next year. But excuse me, on the flip side of it, what were some head scratchers for you guys?
I mean, for me, I'm not gonna say it was much of a head scratcher, but I'm wondering what direction they're going in. And it's that boy Tua, bro. It's that boy Tua. I mean, I just feel like you setting yourself up at this point. I understand. You have you try to you draft a quarterback that had injury history and unfortunately got injured, and you might not have a clear direction. But I mean, you go to Tua. That's your clear direction. That's where you decide you want to do. Now he could come in and light the shit up, and I could be dead ass wrong, but I mean, we've seen it. I mean, he has been the talk of everybody for the past few years about his play, about his willing to protect himself, about him getting injured. He is literally one concussion away from probably never playing again. And you willing to gamble that way? I'm not a GM, so that's probably why I'm not a GM. I don't fucking understand. But that was a little of a head scratcher. I'm sorry, Kat. I just had to put that out there. We joke, but it really is dead serious right now. He is
And
literally
he
one
was
of
officially he was technically the first free agent signing.
so you
Without
went
They
and
did that
jumped out there
quick,
real
bro. They
quick.
did it quick.
Like I'm not saying he would have been any different, but you didn't want to try to get Kyler Murray. Like, I mean, I would have rather gamble like that than to gamble on Tua. But again, I'm not a GM, so then they know a little more than I do. But that was a little head scratcher.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about risk. It's what they're putting out. And kind of, I mean, when you're paying 1.2 million to a guy, you know, it is what it is. It's a little head scratching to me too, Chris, because like you don't. Now you have two quarterbacks that you really can't even trust, like for real, to get through a full season. I know Tua has had full seasons, but or maybe just one actually full season. But you have two back there that really you really like tensing up. There were times, and he wasn't even on my team where I'm watching Tua play, and he's running out there, and I'm like, oh, you know, like tensing up, like what's about to happen? Is he gonna get hurt? And now it's about to be like that for Mike too. It's already been like that for Mike too. So it's like you kind of playing with fire there. But again, you know, you got him for a minimum. You know, just kind of see what happens. You got to keep adding to that room. There's no way. Obviously, you have to add somebody else in that room. I wonder if it'll be a veteran or somebody that the Falcons do end up adding. But it is a little head scratching to me too, Chris. We'll see how it goes. Of course, they're labeling it as his competition. We talked about how it is.
Two is a starter.
Two is going to start, but that's also because you can't start Michael Penix and then bench him. There's no coming back from that. You have to start your veteran or your the more experienced guy. In my opinion, it just always works out that way. You know, where you're able to bench. If you bench Tua, then it is what it is. You know, if you start Mike and bench him for Tua, you can't come back to Mike. You can't. You know what I mean? It is like you're done.
It's really nowhere. It's trust me, because I just went through it. You can't go back to him. Period. It's over. It's over with for him. It's over with.
No, I ain't going on there yet. But again, this is Tua that we're talking about here.
Tua was better than Daniel Jones.
Tua had a really bad season. Tua got benched last year for Quinn Ewers, a 7th-round pick.
We say that. Tua did not get benched for Quinn Ewers. He got benched because they didn't want him to get hurt, obviously, for the money side of it. He didn't get benched.
You had a coach that's coaching for his job, clearly was, that benched him to go with Quinn Ewers. All right. You know what I mean? Same thing happened with the team I'm about to talk about. My head-scratching team, though, is the Arizona Cardinals. And it's more of not like what they did, but it's like what they didn't do or what haven't they done so far. And I'm like, where exactly is, like you said, Chris, direction? What's going on here? I just want to know. What is your plan at quarterback? Of course, we talked about, like, there was reports saying that Jacoby Brissett hasn't been promised the QB1 job. What are we talking about here? Who are you bringing in? There was reports about Kirk Cousins. That's been real quiet, you know. And so who else is out there that you're going to try to get? You bring in Gardner Minshew. Is that your quarterback room this season? Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett? When you're trying to figure out who around you, is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be a guy? Was Michael Wilson, was that a 1-year flu? It's a lot of stuff to still figure out in that offense. Again, with the running backs too, they bring in Tyler Algier, but you choose to re-sign James Conner. And is that all the insurance? You still have Trey Benson there, who clearly they don't like that much as that people say they did. It's just a lot of question marks with the Arizona Cardinals right now. You bring in Kendrick Bourne, which, okay, cool, you know, it's a cool little sign or whatever, but I don't know, man. I just don't know what exactly Arizona's doing, especially at the quarterback position. And it's like almost like you're just like packing it in for this year. And I get it. The quarterback selection wasn't strong. There's not many guys to choose from. But did they even try for Malik Willis? That happened pretty quickly. Maybe they didn't have a chance because that was already the worst kept secret or whatever. Than him going to Miami. But it's a lot of question marks in Arizona for me.
Yeah, and I think Arizona's probably shaping up to be kind of like what the Giants were last year, where everybody was kind of like, who are they going with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, and their whole plan was to, you know, trade back up in the first round to you know, get the quarterback that he did in Jackson Dart. And I could see there's been rumors that the Cardinals are going or Ty Simpson fans So maybe that's just what their plan is. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The whole idea to just get off Kyler, it seems very short-sighted. Which I mean, obviously that's always something that could have, that was always going to be a factor, just given the lack of success that they had outside of the the one playoff run. But it is very interesting to at least it doesn't seem like they were in the market to talk to some of the other guys. Daniel Jones was transition tagged, so maybe he pretty much said he wanted to go to the 80s. So I don't know if that was an option. Kyler clearly was not an option. It seems like Kyler was a two-man team between, like we talked about, if the talks fell through with Daniel Jones with the Colts, seems like he was probably going there, and vice versa. Daniel probably would have ended up in Minnesota. The Tua situation, just given the fact that he was signed immediately, like the moment that the first day started, before the tampering period started, it was already reported by like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. It was reported the Falcons were going with Tua. So, I don't think Tua didn't go there for no reason. He's clearly going to be the starter there, and that's what they told him. So, I don't think that was going to be for the Cardinals. Outside of that, Malik Willis, I guess he was the only other one. I like Malik Willis. There was a lot of talk about Malik Willis being like the ball of the free agency period. There's a lot of people saying, like, if you looked at some of the free agency rankings, like Malik Willis was the number one player, and then there's like Daniel, and then there's like Kyler Murray, and I'm like, Kyler Murray is clearly without question, clearly the best quarterback available in free agency. And then Tua, to his credit, I mean, I understand the injury history, but like Tua's resume is, there's nobody. It's Kyler, Tua, Daniel, and then Malik Willis in terms of resume. So like I don't. And even then, it's probably Kyler, Tua, Daniel, then Malik Willis even further down. So, and I get the injury history with Tua. So I guess maybe it just really wasn't any option. But the Cardinals are so irrelevant. Like, they're just kind of like.
Could they have went after Mac Jones or something though? Like, I feel like that could have been a Mac Jones team too. I mean, I don't know. It
seems like maybe Mac Jones may not be available like people think because of the injury history with Brock. So I mean. Because, it feels like we haven't heard anything with Mac Jones. And, obviously, he's not the only person Kirk Cousins is obviously on the market as well. Kirk Cousins' resume is obviously probably top of the market as well. But, he's older. Joe Flacco, you're not going to bring those two guys probably with Jacoby and Gardner Minshew. There's still, obviously, the trade market for Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. That remains to be seen. Maybe they do go for one of those guys if things fall through.
Could they have tried for Geno? Who maybe
Geno, I don't think would have wanted to go there.
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields, I guess. Which that is a little bit of a head scratcher in itself. But
to Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
not.
Okay.
People can't shake the Justin Fields, so maybe it'll be different. But
tools, all about the tools.
No, it's about the coach. Andy, Big Red.
I hear you.
They bringing up Vic now. You seen that? And you seen look what Andy Reid did for Vic. Look what he did for Vic. Yeah.
Vic was a completely different player. Had way more success before Andy Reid. I don't know. But my head scratcher, honestly, is for a team that I've kind of been saying is probably going to be a heavy regression candidate, and in the Chicago Bears. There has been a lot of talk, and there continues to be a lot of talk about people acting like Chicago was just this dominant team, and I understand what their record was. I understand that they did make a small playoff run, but their defense was bad. And it was opportunistic, but everybody from the defense is basically gone. Brisker's gone, Kevin Byard's gone, Nashawn Wright's gone.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson
is gone. Tremaine Edmonds is gone. So I don't really.
Your center retired out of nowhere.
Center retired out of nowhere, and obviously you did get Garrett Bradbury to come over And he has history with Tooney from college and their NC State days. So maybe there's like a a little bit of camaraderie there, but it's still like not necessarily a younger guy. And just the same way we talked about with Washington last year is like these young guys, are needed to kind of continue the progression of your team as opposed to the older guys. So that's a little bit curious to me. They brought in Devin Bush. He had a pretty good season last year, but it was with the Browns, the D-line that they had, the linebacker that they had, the DBs that they had. I just kind of like, even, getting rid of DJ Moore. I know they're kind of like, everybody's kind of plastered at him like he's a wash player or whatever the case may be. But, I think Luther Burden is like that, and Rome Odunze I think is good as well. But they both have to stay healthy and both have to show it. So, outside of, Loveland, I guess in your tight end room you feel really confident in, but the passing attack wasn't good either last year. So, like, maybe it takes another step. I do also feel like, they could have been a candidate for Kenneth Walker because while I do love DeAndre Swift, I really love DeAndre Swift as a dog, but teams haven't also loved DeAndre Swift, and teams seemingly wanted, no shade to him, but he hasn't necessarily found a home. So maybe they felt like they could improve on it. They had a 7th-round pick in Kyle Monangai, who was really good as well. The rushing attack was really good, so don't get it twisted, and that's what carried the team for the most part. But I just didn't, you signed Kobe Bryant, who was, pretty good with the Seattle Seahawks last year. Obviously, he got a ring. Not to say anything negative against Kobe, but like, we also know that Mike McDonald is a defensive guru. We know how he is with scheming things up for multiple different organizations. And we also know what that team looked like in terms of their D-line depth and the depth of their DBs and the rest of their team. So was that, a function of that? They also get Neville Gallimore, who was their D tackles were already a little bit old, and Neville Gallimore was pretty good with the Colts coming on in spot minutes last year, but he is a rotational rusher. I mean, he's a rotational D tackle as opposed to, maybe getting a starter or another guy. Obviously, he's D tackle, but opposite of Sweat.
Same thing with Kentavious Street. He's getting up there in age, barely rotational now. You know him, Chris.
So I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. And then and sticking in the division, Pacheco, as we were sitting here kind of bashing the Chiefs running backs, the Detroit Lions signing Isaiah Pacheco to kind of be, that David Montgomery replacement. I don't necessarily know about that just because Pacheco hasn't been in terms of success rate. It's like in the gutter. He hasn't necessarily been a good running back behind what's been a good offensive line, and we've seen success with other running backs in Kansas City, even though they might not have had the juice that Pacheco had. So it's like, are they going to be able to unlock it, or is that just, you wanted to get a guy? I mean, I guess he kind of fits like the run hard mold that they like, or just go hard mode that they like in terms of Detroit in general. But to me, that's a little bit of like I don't necessarily know about that, but not to hate on him because I vote Isaiah Pacheco, but to David Montgomery was really good. He was really good for them last year as well. Is he going to be able to replicate that, or is it just going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs show, and then from there, it's Pacheco just coming in when he comes in? And even then, if that's the case, they have some other guys in the running back room that I feel like were pretty good last year. So, like, why not just rock with them?
By the end of the season, it'll be Pacheco will be getting Gibbs Gatorade on the sideline. That's pretty much it.
Probably hand and they go water.
Another head scratcher since we talking about the Chiefs is just their relentlessness of getting rid of all their corners every time they get a chance. I mean, I know you say you like that I forgot his name, their corner for the Chiefs.
Noah Williams.
Yeah, but I feel like the difference between them doing what they did with Snead is, at least at that point in time, Trenton had kind of established himself as going to be a top tier corner. and they don't have no corners in my opinion. And then they trade him, and then let Jaylen Watson walk. That's kind of a interesting ordeal for them defensively. But that was just something I had just thought about when we was just talking about the Chiefs.
Speaking of Snead, I do want to point out one more I forgot to mention for free agencies we love. I like what the Titans did. I like what the Titans have been doing. Picking up John Franklin Myers, especially for their revamped defense under Saleh. You got Wan'Dale Robinson, who of course had a great season last year, 1,000-yard receiver. You know, for Cam Ward, you got Alontae Taylor, who was the slept-on corner, versatile inside-out corner. I like what they did, Cordell Flott. I like what they did so far at free agency for the Titans. I don't want to gloss over Johnson. That. So
I think what they did defensively is all right. Rebuilding the entire cornerback room with straight free agency corners, it seems a little.
I mean, they tried it and it didn't work, and now they're trying it again.
They're trying it again. You know, definitely like what they did defensively. I don't. Because that was one that I was going back and forth on. I don't necessarily love. I do really like Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't know why it was such like a shoe-in for them to get Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe they just feel. I mean, Cam Ward did have obviously in college had a really good repertoire with Restrepo. So maybe they feel like it's in similar ilk in terms of play style. But you know, with Calvin Ridley coming off injury this past season, it just feels like they could have used, and maybe they like their young guys over there. They feel like could be an outside guy. It just feels like they, you know, I don't know if Mike Evans would have went there. Obviously, Alec Pierce was never hitting the market either. So
think about the receiver market this go around. After those two, you had Wan'Dale, you had Naylor. He ended up going to Vegas.
Debo.
We'll see what Debo do.
Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, they're still out there though. Jawan Jennings would not be a bad pickup for Tennessee at this point, but
you know, Rashid Shaheed, Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs, I would have loved if he went there, but obviously, you know, it seems like he's going to be part of that AJ Brown 1-2 punch in New England. We'll see it.
They just need to drop that, man.
That's gonna happen.
It probably is. It's gonna win at June 2nd.
Yeah, June 2nd.
June 2nd. That's when it's gonna happen. But hey, that Waddle trade, got up the ante a little bit after that.
They say his knees is.
They did say he got degenerate knee
cheese. So.
Degenerate knee problem, bro. I'm like, damn.
Oh, they love to bring that out, boy.
Who they say had a degenerative ACL?
Ooh, I saw that a couple weeks ago.
I can't remember. It was somebody in the.
Hey, bro, they be coming up with new names every single time.
It was Caleb Downs.
Oh yeah, in the draft. Yeah.
What the hell is a degenerative ACL? I've never heard of that in my life.
Well, I'm kind of shit coming out.
The ACL it just gets worse. Are you just sitting there?
Every day it gets worse and worse.
But I mean, with that being said, I mean it's free agency, so you know a lot of these guys. I mean, a couple years ago, I'm sitting here talking about Wan'Dale Robinson, and he did go for 1,000 yards last year. But a couple years ago, everybody was talking about Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk was really good with the Jags until he got hurt, and you know they started to replace him. So maybe these guys, you know, you never know with free agency. Like teams are obviously letting guys go for a reason, but sometimes that reason is they just drafted so damn well that they
don't need them no more.
They don't need them no more. Sometimes it's you know, in the case of the Giants, I'm sure you know Wan'Dale Robinson's been there for some time. They just got a big time receiver in Malik Neighbors, even though he's coming off an injury. They signed some people to kind of replace with Isaiah Likely going there for the same amount of money that Wan'Dale Robinson signed for. He goes to his former head coach as the now offensive coordinator in Tennessee. Could be stuff like that, just coaching changes, regime changes. They look at you differently. They look at size, strength, speed differently, stuff like that. So. I don't know. We always it's funny because somebody said it like right before free agency starts. everybody loves the free agents until they actually sign, and then all of a sudden it's like, this guy, like, why did you, he signed for that? Like, it's like, well, if you want to say you like somebody, like, you gotta put the money in for them. So it is what it is. All these overpays or whatever the case may be, even though I don't think anybody really got overpaid. It always looks a certain way the very next
Jalen
year.
Phillips here.
So Jalen Phillips,
but that's one of the reasons, like you said, Shy. I mean, it wasn't that we didn't want him back. He was just out of our price.
Y'all weren't paying that. Man, no way.
They said about 27, 26. That nigga said got 30. Hey, congratulations, my guy. We just can't afford that. So,
and they said the Colts were close on Trey Hendrickson, and they were talking the Colts didn't want to go over 25, and he signed for like 28, 29 a year.
20, yeah.
It's stuff like that, that happens all the time. And when you're a team that, like the Panthers, who's, obviously the Eagles have been a great organization over the past few years, especially the Panthers are still trying to, continue the momentum they had from last year. You do have to pay up a little bit more to get somebody to come over there. And unfortunately, like, it depends on the structure. Obviously, if you can structure it correctly, the overpay, might hit this year, but, next year, the year after, you're able to get off of it. It's all that's one thing that they don't talk about enough, at least to the common fan, is like the money, but then the structure of the money and how it is able to allow these teams to have flexibility. Or in the Bengals case, they have like no flexibility because they're paying all their guys with huge cap hits right now, no void years or anything like that.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's always agent driven, because a lot of, like you said, you hear the number. Oh, he signed for whatever 15 million. It's probably closer to 10 incentives. You just don't see that kind of stuff. But agent driven. They got to make it sound good.
It's very agent driven because clearly we don't have any real reporters anymore. They always just copy and paste what the agent sent over to them. But I mean, we'll see. There's more to come. It's still very, very early on into the off season. Obviously, this is the time of the year that everybody gets excited for, and it came and went like that. And
real fast.
Some of like I said, before we even hit the actual new league year, we basically had all the signings in the first 2 days. So now it's just kind of everybody getting their value signings in. We'll see. There's still going to be other players cut. We'll still have to see what happens with the AJ Brown saga or whatever the case may be, but it feels like we got a little bit more indication of what's going to happen with the Dallas Collard coming back. So it's going to be an interesting time, but we'll see as we get closer to the draft where how things shake out. But before we sign off, any sneaky signings that you guys really liked before we sign off?
Sneaky signings. I mean, we didn't talk about it a lot, so it's not really sneaky because everybody hear about it. But I mean, you could just talk about, Kyler Murray. I'm interested to see what their decision is with JJ McCarthy, because they came into.
It's over.
I'm just saying, it's just funny how it transitions from, he got drafted to him being the guy of that year until he got hurt. They shut him down for an entire year. Sam Darnold obviously you can't predict the future of how Sam Darnold gonna play. He come back next year, and it's just. It looks like what were you looking at over training camp to believe that this was your quarterback of the future? And then now you bring in Kyler Murray, which I mean he's going to take over in my opinion. He's going to do great this year. I ain't saying they're going obviously make a deep playoff run, but I think that offense is going to be great for him. And so I like that signing for them. It's just unfortunate for JJ. I guess he's going to leave his contract out, and then he's going to be a free agent however long. This is third year, so he got a year, 2 years. If they pick up his fifth year option, they might say fuck him.
They not picking up his fifth year option. It's over with. It's over with. It's over with him for him in Minnesota.
Yeah, so, but I like that one. I really like it.
That Kyler Murray one has some upside to it. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But Kevin O'Connell seems excited to get him, so we'll see how it goes. I got a couple. Reed Blankenship to the Houston Texans. Sneaky. Very sneaky one. Very sneaky. But he could do great things for that defense. Just keep them rolling. But also, and I feel like this is one you would pick shot, but Keaton Mitchell to the Chargers. sneaky signing. Not a lot of people were talking about it, but again, if he stays healthy, that's a big thing with him, of course. The home run potential adding that home run potential to the offense, Mike McDaniel offense, is very important. That's going under the radar. So I like how that could be. That's a very sneaky one that I feel like is going under the radar.
And the Chargers basically just signed, all the former Ravens. they didn't change anything up from the norm. I mean, the Giants obviously signed some former Ravens and Chargers, and vice versa. So they definitely keep it within the family. But I'm gonna go with two. So first and foremost, one that kind of snuck under the radar just in general, like where I feel like it wasn't even really reported. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson going to Buffalo. I think Buffalo needs to shake some shit up. I don't necessarily love them going after another old edge rusher in Bradley Chubb. But we'll kind of see how that goes. But they do need to shake some shit up, and what better person to shake some shit up than Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now, I understand that he hasn't been able to find a home, but one thing he has, I don't know if we can directly correlate it to him, but I mean, the end of the day, the results are the results, and the Bears got better with him, the Eagles got better with him, the Lions got better with him. So, Buffalo, maybe he does find a home in Buffalo. They have somebody that just kind of creates some friction over there. Maybe that, I'm not saying that they were missing it, but maybe kind of bringing that element that Stephon Diggs kind of brought. Maybe not to the same extent. Obviously, he's probably not going to be all pro. I mean, you never know. He might be. But getting him in that Jim Leonard defense, I think is going to be really key. And I think it's going to be a fun watch. And then Geno Smith going back home. Going back to the Jets. The Jets have made a lot of good sneaky moves on the low. A lot of moves that's kind of just kind of flown under the radar. He has a better receiving core than he had you would think if A.D. Mitchell kind of continues on. He has hopefully a better receiving core with A.D. Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor. He's got Breece Hall coming back. It could be a little something. Demario Davis coming back as well from the Saints, getting some of that veteran presence. They obviously picked up Wright from the Bears in the cornerback room to kind of replenish the cornerbacks that they've lost over the past 2 years with DJ Reed and Sauce. So, I kind of like what the Jets are doing, but
we'll see what Frank Wright can do over there.
We'll see. It is still the Jets. It's still Aaron Glenn. It's still Frank. So. Even though the move seems smart, we obviously got to see it all play out. Andre Cisco being re-signed, Dane Belton. I really like a lot of the moves that they made. It's just so hard to trust them because they are the New York Jets. So
funny, but they wouldn't. They is not letting that boy Breece Hall go, but he be talking shit about them.
I mean,
they will not let him go.
Ultimately, I do think that I would call the bluff of a lot of players if I really felt that they were a building block for us. And, I do think that Breece Hall could, he could definitely cash in right now while they don't have a bunch of people that they're trying to sign. But getting off of Jermaine Johnson and then bringing Joseph Asai in, they got T'Vondre Sweat to kind of solidify that D-line. They're not kind of pigeonholed into something right now. And then with not having the ability, maybe they fall in love with one of these quarterbacks in the draft. They still do have multiple first-round picks, this year and next year. So they've got a lot of ammo to get the ship right if they do it right. And I think that with the leadership that they probably brought in, hopefully with Demario Davis and Geno having experience being in New York before to come back, hopefully they kind of right the ship a little bit. I don't know if that riding the ship will necessarily turn into wins because it is a win-loss league, and it is tough to win in this league, especially with all these other teams seemingly getting better. We'll see with Buffalo. The Patriots obviously feel like they probably are getting better, and then Miami is just here. So we'll kind of see. I'm sure, bringing in new blood and stuff like that, they probably feel like they got better. So it'll be tough, but I really do like what the Jets have been doing, and I do like, I do think that Geno Smith might have been a little bit more of a product of whatever the hell was going on in Vegas versus his
Chip.
actual play. But we'll see.
Chip.
We'll see. But with that being said, that gives us a wrap for another episode of Speak Up Sports Podcast. We will catch you guys next week.
Yes, sir.